So welcome everyone to the meeting, councillors, officers, public and press, and anyone who may be viewing this online. Can I ask that councillors remain seated in the seats allocated to them for voting purposes, and can I please remind councillors to turn their microphones on while speaking and turn them off again once finished, otherwise you will not be heard on the broadcast. So, apologies for absence. We have official apologies for absence from councillors Brooks and Hobson, who are representing the council on official business. Any other official apologies for absence? No. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Councillors need to declare their interest on items in the agenda. Can I remind councillors that you should declare the type of interest you have, the agenda item and reference in question, and the reason why you have an interest. Councillor Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a personal interest in the Leader's Executive Report, and that is as a trustee on the Heritage and Museum Trust. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Hoyle.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I could declare, please, an interest as part of the Executive Members' Report, Blackpool Services at Part 5B, as I'm the Chair of the Envico Board.
Thank you. Councillor Wilshaw.
It's personal interest on item 5B. I'm a non-executive board member at Blackpool Waste.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
On agenda item 5B, I also have a personal interest, as I'm also on the non-executive board, director on the board of Envico.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Webb.
On the agenda on page 87, I'm declaring a personal interest as a member of Blackpool Civic Trust.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor Benson again.
Personal item, member of the Civic Trust.
And did I see you, Councillor Baker? Okay. Just everybody put your hand up if you're a member of the Civic Trust. Okay. Do we have any others apart from the Civic Trust? Councillor Baker, for you.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to declare interest in the Fire Authority item, as I'm a member of the Fire Authority.
It isn't a Fire Authority item. No.
Which agenda item is it?
Sorry, Councillor Baker, what agenda item was that?
I haven't got the agenda in front of me. The Fire Authority item.
Mayor, there's a reference in the minutes to the Fire Authority, but there's no need to declare an interest with regard to that. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. In that case, moving on. We have the minutes of the last meeting. So do all councillors agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of September 2023 is a true and correct record? Agreed. Fabulous. Thank you. Announcements. Would just, on behalf of the Chamber, offer condolences to the family and friends of Anne Armfield, the widow of Jimmy Armfield, whose funeral took place last weekend on the 25th of November. We send our condolences. And we also offer our thoughts and condolences to Councillor Mel Fenlon and Councillor Gerard Walsh, who are not in attendance this evening, as each have had a family bereavement. And just very quickly, I know it will be mentioned later on, White Ribbon Day took place on the 25th of November, which is a campaign to end men's violence against women and girls so that they may live their lives free from the fear of violence. Some of the members and officers present this evening are wearing ribbons in support of the campaign, and I would encourage everyone to make the white ribbon promise, never to use, excuse or remain silent about men's violence against women and girls, and to wear a white ribbon, the international symbol of ending men's violence against women. And that's all from me. Going on now to public representation, and Mr. Ian White will address the council. Mr. White, you will have up to 5 minutes to speak, and you will receive a warning light at 4 minutes. Thank you.
Mayor, members of Blackpool Council, today I wish to applaud the Council in its desire to improve the town's housing stock by looking to extend the selective licensing scheme that has run on a smaller projects over recent years. Whilst only in the consultation stage, it would be appropriate for anyone impacted or potentially impacted to go online and share their thoughts and concerns. When used first in South Shore, there was positive progress in a number of areas of concern, leaving me positive and in support of the Council's plans. I do have a significant concern though. I believe the scheme, rather than just residential lets, should capture all rental properties, significantly those where there's no on-site management or owner. With the town having a critical oversupply of short-term bed spaces and a chronic undersupply of affordable residential accommodation, the town cannot afford for residential landlords to feel the need to move to short-stay letting market due to significant barriers, costs, and red tape. Worse still, those that would flip-flop between long and short-term stays. This proposal is essential for properties with some being poor quality or overcrowded, or being used to house vulnerable individuals, whether they're from Blackpool or elsewhere in the country, as well as those properties used to house homeless, ex-offenders, or others on their journey back to society. Such substandard accommodation away from family or friends, with offering little more than seasonal job prospects, seriously doing nothing to support the rehabilitation and onward journey of these individuals. Also, only a few days ago, the following was sent to me by a trusted source, where they had an interesting conversation with a gentleman looking at the outside of the Arlene Hotel on Hornby Road, currently up for auction for 30,000. Yes, 30,000. But it is just a shell inside. The property has been up for auction 3 times previously, between 70 and 85,000, each time reducing in achieved market value. Each time the buyers had pulled out after they actually read the legal pack, which includes details of enforcement notices from Blackpool Council for the illegal rebuild of the frontage following a collapse a few years ago. Anyway, this guy looked at it and said, "It seems quite quiet up here. It'd make some nice flats if it hadn't going to be a B&B again." The chap replied, "No, it's not flats. I'm looking for properties to turn into Airbnbs." So he was asked, why Airbnbs and not proper registered holiday accommodation? He said, "Oh, goodness, no. There's too much legal stuff and hassle, and it's all ridiculous. I just buy them, do them up, and list them on Airbnb. I was also aware of an Airbnb-style holiday let in South Shore, where 300 people were removed by the out-of-hours noise and antisocial behaviour team on the night of the Tyson Fury fight. The property had planning permission for 7 residential apartments, yet had been flipped into holiday lets without permission. 5 apartments, a gym, a cinema room, an entertainment room. There are some, though certainly not all owners and management agents, destroying this town with total disrespect, just out for their own short-term gain, leaving the town with long-term pain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr White. And I do believe that Councillor Mark Smith is going to respond on behalf of the Council.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ian, for your comments you raised today at the Council. Thank you for supporting the proposal for consultation of a selected licence for the private sector rental in Blackpool in the 18 awards. I'd ask all affected persons, including landlords and tenants, to take part in the consultation that is currently live on the Blackpool Council website until the 7th of January next year. Regarding your concerns relating to the short stay accommodation, that includes businesses like Airbnb, which is the branded organisation, I echo your concerns, and we have had many conversations relating to this over the years regarding the impact it has on the local community and the residents of Blackpool. Selected licensing doesn't extend to this type of accommodation, unfortunately, as this just covers the private rented sector. However, I think we can provide some assurance that as part of the new selected license scheme, we do intend to do proactive investigations. And so we will come across properties that have issues outside the scope of the selective license, i.e. planning. We will be able to quickly pass these on to the relevant departments to take action on those. The Council has challenged the legal conversation. The Council has challenged the legal conversions of properties of short stay accommodation through the planning powers. And so far, 10% have returned back to residential homes, either as an occupier or rented for tenants. Regarding your property on Hornby Road, I checked today and it's showing that it's sold on the website. I will pass on the planning to ensure that this has been monitored and any changes are made within inside the planning guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and thank you for attending, Mr White. Just to let you know that the second speaker, Mr Tom Barlow from Blackpool Golf Club, has notified us in writing today that he has withdrawn his request to speak. So on to executive reports, pages 7 to 36. Just a reminder that each executive member will present a report in relation to their portfolio area. The green light will be on, and then the amber light will come on when there is 1 minute remaining, red light when the time is up for speeches. So over to the Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Please prevent my report. I just, in light of the announcement today from Nottingham, I just wanted to give a bit further reassurance that we now have some preliminary figures for month 7. In year has reduced to 1.1 million and working balances are now over 5 million. Still a way to go, but absolutely going in the right direction. And further gratitude to Steve Thompson and all of his team, and indeed all officers who are constantly working upon this. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. So we're going to do it like we did it last time. So we're going to take it theme by theme. So theme 1 on page 7, which is the budget 2023 to 24. Any questions? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. I welcome the Leader's use of the theme 1 and her comments tonight as regards the use of the budget for this item and the comments as regards to the work of our officers, especially in light of the news we're hearing from Nottingham tonight. This was absolutely the right item to lead on. Our group here has been doing some analysis, Mayor, of all the other local authorities and so on, and what their high-risk areas are in terms of their accounts. And there is a theme. That theme is children's services, it's adult services, it's school transport, it's short-term borrowings, it's emergency accommodation, all of which are producing in small pockets for all different reasons, Mayor, different figures that are creating these overspends. When we look at what the Office for Local Government is saying for Blackpool, and comparing all of these different councils in England and Wales, including councils that are closely resembling Blackpool in terms of our economics and our demographics, Blackpool sits in all the wrong boxes and in all the wrong spaces within those boxes. As the leader's report says, 6 million on children's overspend, 3.5 on adults, 500,000 on school transport overspend. We also have 200 million in short-term borrowings. And that's before we even get to the emerging risk of emergency accommodation. And whilst I appreciate, Mayor, what the team are doing in terms of trying to get us through this particular budget, which is absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm fully behind what they're doing and what the leader's doing with that, and that is trying to move different projects around, reducing funding as is demonstrated there to get us through into February. Where I feel it starts to look at, it feels like it's a sticking plaster to actually the real issues, and that we do need to reform what are we doing with our children's services and what are we doing with our adult services, because all of those problems aren't going to go away. We know we're going to be short of 22 million in next year's budget before we even started with a 4 million addition from this year's. So my question to the leader will be, what does she project the overspends will be in children's services and adult services for next year's budget? Tonight you'll hear a theme from our members in terms of their solutions. I'll be very keen to hear, though, what the leader's predictions will be on those figures.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any other questions on theme 1? Councillor Bradley Mitchell.
Thank you. I spoke at the last meeting about helping our finances by scrapping ward budgets. And despite Councillor Burdess getting my name wrong and misinterpreting what I said, she did go on to provide my cause huge support. She stated that ward budgets are used for street cleaning, weed removal and other basic council services. I thank Councillor Burdess for her inadvertent support, and now I have a second councillor from her own side of the floor supporting my points. I wonder if the leader has given any more thought to scrapping the anti-democratic ward budgets to help our finances and provide better basic council services.
Okay, any further speakers on theme 1? No, in that case, over to you, Councillor Williams.
So, children's service, adult services, and school transport are just themes up and down the country. This is, a national scandal. The fact that we have had a report onto children's services and government has chosen not to follow through those reforms. It is incredibly clear to government that both adults and children's services need that additional investment. Not just us. I mean, if you've been doing your analysis of all the authorities that have either issued a notice or have either announced publicly that they are struggling, they are large, small, colours of all spectrum. This is not a Blackpool issue. What we are doing locally is we will continue with the absolutely fantastic work that has gone on in children's services. When I had responsibility, if you'd have asked me then that within 2 and a bit years that we would have reduced our dependence on agency staff to less than the national average, we're on 14%, which is phenomenal. Other local authorities are still on 50%. Our children's numbers, I believe, are on 534, maybe less. There is a slow and steady reduction, which is the ultimate aim, putting it very simply, is less children coming into care and more going out, more back to their families. So we're going to continue with the amazing work that Vicky, our DCS, and Chris, the deputy, has done, which has been the rock on all of this improvement has been on our staff. You'll have seen from our Ofsted report last year that one of the most pleasing things from that report, that our social workers want to work in Blackpool. Blackpool Families Rock, that consultation of working families, that restorative practice. They want to work here because they can make a difference, and they are being supported to do so by this council. So adults, again, it is in the face of increasing demand, there are factors, not that we're not in control, but that are out of our control, and that's increasing demand and cost. And the bottom line in all of this is that money is needed from government to fund those services. If they're going to choose, come the settlement figure, which we may not even get until January, to prioritise tax cuts when they know full well the impact that this will have of not increasing that settlement for councils across the board. So, and that's a decision that government is going to make. They know what the impact it's going to have on services, on children's services and adult services. We are doing all that we can, and I'm actually incredibly proud of the work that goes on at this council to protect our children and to ensure those services in the face of those cuts. In relation to the ward budget, no, I haven't changed my opinion, and if you're still short of ideas as to where to spend your ward budget, I am sure Councillor Hunter has got lots of ideas in terms of and point you in the right direction of some community projects that need that support that will only come from the ward budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. So moving on to theme 2. And if I can just have a little personal moment here, I am absolutely delighted that Showtown is going to be opening sometime soon. I was the council member who went to a weekend away to talk about museums, and nobody could believe that Blackpool had never had a museum. So I kind of kick-started this, so I'm terribly proud that we're going to be opening to the doors really soon, and I hope somebody invites me. Questions about theme 2? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. Whilst I fully support the leader in her approach for theme 1, I was a little puzzled as to regards theme 2, where I thought we were going with for council was to take it into a more of a strategic space, Mayor. And what I feel is missing is actually this should be almost a reflection of the leader's portfolio, which is tourism. And I'm going to park that thought for a second whilst I then pick up another theme before I go back to that. In terms of the Blackpool Heritage Museum Trust, the Conservative Group is fully behind what the aim of that trust will do. We absolutely love our heritage, from our piers to our theatres to our trams, and we will be right behind that project, and we will support you in every way we can to make it successful. But going back to the theme, what I feel is missing is that this should be a strategic area for allowing us to have some kind of overall discussion as regards tourism in Blackpool. What I note that we don't have, I certainly can't find it, Mayor, is I can't actually find a tourism strategy. A tourism strategy that talks about Showtown in one part. We'll talk about the central development in another. We'll talk about how many people will be required to work in it over the next 5 or 10 years as these developments play out. And I feel, Leader, that we're missing a trick by not having that, because it stops the type of discussion that we want to have in this chamber that is useful to all, mostly the public. So great that Showtown is being developed. And absolutely brilliant that the Blackpool Heritage Museum Trust is on its way, but I feel we've missed a trick by not talking about the strategic vision of tourism in Blackpool. Most of all, Mayor, where is the tourism strategy?
Sorry, microphone issue. Any further questions on theme 2? No? In that case, we'll just leave that for a moment and just open it up to general questions, if that's okay with you, Councillor. Any general questions or comments on the leader's portfolio? Councillor Bradley Mitchell.
As leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Tourism, I'd hope and trust that you've done more since the last meeting than just a short financial update and an update on the Showtown Museum. Having just 2 themes on a report and small individual updates at full council lacks the necessary transparency, accountability and openness that we should be striving to provide the public with. I think we need to go back to more fuller reports across your whole portfolio, if that's okay.
Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed, Leader, that you cover tourism-based regeneration, which is fantastic. That allows us to pull out some of those themes that I feel are missing. So I noticed, I therefore took the opportunity to go from one part of the Blackpool to another, from Stargate to Bispham, and I counted 289 properties of all different sizes. Of that 289 properties, there were 29 that were empty or abandoned. And by empty, I don't just mean they closed on Friday and weren't open. They've been long-term empty. There are 6 opposite the Metropole, Mayor. They look dreadful. If anybody needs to know where to get their firewood and pallets from, we'll now be able to see it, because there's a big bit of graffiti and it's been there most of the illuminations period. It acts like a scar on Blackpool, because everybody that goes from one bit to the other sees it. They see the decline and they think, oh gosh, that's all I think of Blackpool. I see that. I see the neglect. I see that people don't seem to care. Some of those buildings have been so empty for so long, Mayor, that the metal borders that were put up has corroded. It's fallen apart. When you actually put that as a percentage, it's 10% of the units from one end to the other are empty. There are a number of powers that exist, Mayor. They cover everything from EDMOs, empty dwellings orders, Building Act 1984. What I feel is missing is, where is the action to deal with those empty properties, those landlords, those owners, that deals with some of the neglect and decline that we're seeing, the decline and neglect, Mayor, that people judge us on and write the types of comments that we're all so contemptuous of, because we know that's not a fair reflection of Blackpool. Blackpool is an amazing place, but these places are not amazing. And as a council, we need to be really firm on it. I would love to see the leader take the approach that that is not good enough.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Sloman.
Thank you, Mayor. Leader, I'd like to ask a question sort of in 3 parts, really, and it's following on from speaking in the council chamber last time we met, in terms of the levels of service that residents were getting from the non-existent staff that were at Bickerstaff House that were working from home. I'd like to find out, since I actually spoke, has there been any improvement in attendance at work and a reduction in working from home? And the civil service are now mandating 60% attendance at work. Are we matching that? And have we got any plans to move on to pre-COVID levels? Secondly, you'll probably all be aware in the press this week, it was highlighted that Freedom of Information requests have revealed that over £450,000 has been made in payments to from councils for council staff, and in some cases councillors, to heat their homes while they're working from home, which is quite frankly scandalous when there are workplaces for them to attend and we've got people living at home that cannot pay for their fuel. So can you confirm whether or not at some point, I appreciate you might not have that to hand tonight, whether or not there have been any of these payments made to councillors or to staff? And finally, can you confirm if there are any safeguards in place to ensure that when staff are working from home, they aren't utilising those hours for secondary employment, as investigations are underway by the National Fraud Office across 3 other authorities where this has been the case? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. In that case, over to you, Councillor Williams.
Councillor Sloman, yes, 60%, that has been a directive from the Chief Exec. I don't know about the 40-50,000. I'd have to look into that, have the details of it. And I'm sure, I mean, I should appreciate those are operational issues that I can get the information from and report back to you. But yeah, absolutely, I agree. You know, that staff should be in the office. I am, and have been, you know, since COVID. But there are other, other reasons, and is getting that balance, but that actually has to, the 60% you've said has to match. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Galley, we've got a theme with the themes, haven't we? The reason why there wasn't anything directly on tourism is because, one, it was at scrutiny, and the STEAM figures were not available for the purposes of this. And we discussed coming without having those figures, and I think that is pretty instrumental for any kind of discussion to look on year in terms of that development. I have spoken with Philip Welsh, despite the fact that he's on holiday, and we have broken the 20 million figure. We've gone from 18.8 for 21 to 22 to over 20 million, which is amazing news for the town, and that's visitors. So, but yeah, so certainly the reason why, that's the reason why the tourism, because it had been at scrutiny on the last occasion, and those figures were not available to enable enough sufficient time to prepare a report to bring to council in with relation to those figures. And I thought that the issue around Showtown was something that was so important, and it's an incredible development for the town, and something we should be really proud of, having our very first museum. We set up problematic properties group. We managed to find resources for a problematic properties officer. As I am sure you'll have all heard at various PAC meetings when Timmy Coghlan used to attend, and Jen Clayton, we know local authority does more enforcement than this. The bottom line is coming back to resources and funding, the availability of officers. We've touched upon earlier with Mr. White's speech with regards to Airbnb. We need more resources, we need more officers, and I think the other side of this is, yes, we have lots of powers, but I think we don't have as many as everybody thinks, to that ability to just... A lot of this is down to, as you rightly pointed out, these are owned by private people. These are private owners who are neglecting their property, who are ignoring enforcement notices. Now, if they're choosing to let their asset rot and to cause this impact, but I assure you that the council is doing absolutely all that we can to speed that up. There are genuine different reasons. One of the properties in town that I know about, for example, is where, obviously when somebody has died, but we can't trace any relatives. We have issues with, the Duchy of Lancaster, which is an absolute nightmare to deal with. And there are other such examples that are listed around. But sometimes people just leave the properties. I mean, it's mind-blowingly, you can't understand, but that happens. And again, coming back in terms of the resources, officers have to deal with those issues that are in priority. Not saying that this isn't a priority, but there are other more important priorities when you've got, very poor quality private central rental accommodation, and you've got families living in quality that is impacting on their health and with level Schedule 1 hazards. So, yeah, absolutely take the point, but it's not something that we have either ignored, we've reacted to, and we will continue to work towards to do all we can to resolve those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. So now on to the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Partnerships and Performance. Over to you, Councillor Taylor.
I've chosen a couple of subjects to lead on tonight. The first one is Hounshill. As you all know, in 2019 we took it over, acquired it. We had a lot of worries about it to some degree, with Debenhams closing and all the consequences of the depression that we've been through. And that was a key part of it. Fortunately, well, it wasn't just fortune, it was good organisation. We then got the Fraser Group in and their associated companies, and that's absolutely fantastic. I don't know whether people have had the chance to go around there yet, but it's a great, great asset. And I'm told that they are making, the output, the turnover is greater than they'd anticipated. That's the company itself. So it's doing really well. We've got the cinema, of course, which is one of the top ones in the country, coming along in the spring. And now, as it's mentioned in the report, also an important restaurant will be part of that. So much going on there, and I think we as a council have done really well to do all that, and I want to particularly thank the officers concerned as well, because it's been magnificent. I don't think any of us a few years ago would have thought we'd be where we are now, but it's a really good performance. And the second one I just wanted to mention is Zenveco, because another great success. We brought it back into council control a few years ago, and it's worked really well. And it allowed us to integrate also, as you know, with street cleansing and all the rest of it, which has allowed for an interchange with people and better communications with the public. There are some big challenges coming up, as you know. We're waiting for government really to respond to the new agenda, but food waste continues to be talked about, and it's coming, there's no doubt about it, and we'll have to get extra vehicles and special vehicles to do that, apart from all the other things that we've got to do. And of course then we'll have to worry about how we enforce it, because no good spending a lot of money on food waste if people still stick it in the same bins. There's another argument, as you know, that people say, well, and this has been tried elsewhere, why do we bother with all these separate bins? Why don't we put all in one bin and sort it out at the other end? And there's some evidence to suggest that that actually might be a better way of doing things. So it's going to be a busy time for us. We're waiting for the government. They're a bit slow, but we've got the right people in place to be able to do that. And I'm very proud of that organisation too. As I am as a long-standing member, I'm very proud of the current council. It's excellent, one of the best in the country.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Okay, so any questions on theme 1 or comments? Councillor Mrs Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Taylor, I came into town on Sunday and visited the new retail unit in the Hounshill, and the town was very busy. It was great to see, and it really has improved that area of the Hounshill. However, to get there, I came in from Victoria Street, and from the higher end of Victoria Street, opposite Marks and Spencer's, there's a large empty unit right at the entrance, and then on the left-hand side, empty units between Timpson's and Superdrug. And it kind of spoils it, really, if you come in through that entrance. Now, I'm hoping you're going to tell me that there are plans for those units, and I'll be very glad to hear what they may be. But in the meantime, could we not just have that area smartened up a little bit? Maybe if there are plans, tell people what those plans are, or just make them look a bit smarter while they're empty. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments on theme 1? No? Can I just say I've been in twice now. So yeah, not bought anything yet, but give me time. So we'll just move straight into theme 2, which is waste and environmental services. Any questions or comments on that? No, you've dumbfounded them, Councillor Taylor. Such a great report. Well, in that case, we'll move on to general questions. You can if you would like to. Yeah, the Hounshill one, yeah?
We've moved forward with the Hounshill, etc., and other shops that need to do. Victoria Street is one that we've got to do as well. Very much in mind. I can't give you any detailed plans yet at the moment, but the properties you're talking about and all the rest are very much in our minds, and I'm sure you'll be watching us as we do it, but I can assure you, you're absolutely right, and that's something we've got to do to raise the whole standard of the area.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So going back, any general questions or comments of the Deputy Leader? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed the Deputy Leader covers contracts, policy and purchasing, and we sort of touched on this, Deputy Leader, in the last full council, and you gave me an answer, as I recall, around purchasing and the work you're doing with regards to social value. One of the themes that we're pushing on a lot deliberately in light of the Nottingham situation and the Birmingham situation and all the other situations that are going on in terms of local authorities that are struggling at the moment, Mayor, is around local government finance. And in your portfolio, Deputy Leader, sits probably one of the biggest themes there in terms of contracts and purchasing. I just wondered, have you carried out a review of all of our contracts and all of our procurement in terms of the contracts, not just their social value, but their value, their costs, their budgets, and where any savings could be made in those?
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any further questions or comments? No? In that case, over to you, Councillor Taylor.
All I can say to that, Mayor, is that it's something we do all the time with each contract. We review what they're saying. And it's moved forward because at one time, as you know, it was all laid out. You could only do this and it's competitive and you can't change it, you can't differentiate against people. That's changing. And it's given us a good opportunity, I think, to bring in social value as well as other changes that will work for the benefit of our people. So that is something that we're very much on with. I can't give you any specifics about it, but we'll have a chat about it sometime soon.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So on to the Cabinet Member for Levelling Up Place, Councillor Mark Smith. You've got 4 themes here. Could you not decide? No? Okay. Over to you, Councillor Smith.
I think I need to spread my themes around to other colleagues of mine to have a few more, you know. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to do one update on the report here. We've got the High Street Accelerator funding bid. It does say in the report that we should have an outcome by the end of November. And being the end of November being tomorrow, it's probably prudent that we could give you an update on that. I understand that we have been successful in that, so that will go ahead. So we'll be over the next few weeks, that will come out in more detail when the press release or stuff comes out. So we can say today that has been successful. That also taps into other money that we can tap into to do some more work around that area. But other than that, any questions, I'll take any questions on that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. So, theme 1, Talbot Gateway, Phase 2, Hotel and Tram. Councillor Galley.
As somebody who follows Councillor Smith on Facebook and sees how busy he is, I think 4 themes is very reflective of that hard work.
Thank you.
So, theme 1, Talbot Gateway, Phase 1, Mayor. Again, theme of finance and so on, and how we manage our projects. We know previously there was an overspend with capital. The question I would really want to, or the answer I would really like to know, Mayor, is when was this project meant to have been opened or launched? That includes the hotel and the tram extension. What was the original budget that was allocated to both of those projects? And what is the overspend on those projects? And who's paying for it? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any further questions on theme 1? No? I'll just pass over to you now, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Galley. There's quite a lot of detail in there, so I couldn't tell you the exact dates and things on there. I know this project started in before COVID, which has caused, you know, lots of delays and pressures on there, which has caused lots of issues and delays. All I can do is say that, yeah, it took a bit longer than we would like it to be, you know, and the complications of doing a tram extension as well as a hotel was caused complications on that site. So, but we've worked through those. I can't go into the exact details of any overspend because that's we're talking about that already with the developer, so we need to sort that out. If there is any, what it is, will come later on. So I can't go into any financial details. All I can tell you that we the tram extension and interchange and the hotel will be open at any time for Easter next year. And my indication is that the high street, that road that runs down the side of the hotel, will be open before Christmas this year. So we're all lined to be open ready for next year. But I can't give you when it's. I can't recall the date it's supposed to be done by, and I can't recall the actual budget figures that was budgeted in there.
I'd like to come back. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to just come back on that. That's actually quite significant, if I may, Mayor. In other places, we've had inquiries for this sort of thing. You know, when tram extensions haven't opened for X amount of time, there have been calls for an inquiry. We've never gone down that road. As for anybody who knows, in Edinburgh, there's £20 million for an inquiry, which is why we're definitely not going down that route. Those numbers, though, are significant. And they're significant because we need to know it won't happen again. We need to know how did we get ourselves in that position, because it has had consequences. We don't need to say what they are here. I would like, though, if the portfolio holder could provide those answers to us in writing. I appreciate that it's quite technical, but I do appreciate, for the reasons that I said, it doesn't happen again, that we do know what that information is and who's paying for it.
Okay, I'll come back in. Yes, no problem. I can get a written response to you for that, because there was a lot of technical detail, and I can't recall all that detail in my head, unfortunately. But I do know since the start of the process of doing the hotel, there will be increased revenue from that site, because increased patronage, increased rates in rooms, so there'll be more revenue coming in, which will cover the cost of any sort of overhead spend that there maybe occur on that site. So there is a plan in process for any other spend to be sort of resolved in increase in income from the project as well going forwards. But I would organise a response for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, so on to theme 2, which is High Street Accelerator funding bid. I'm not sure if there'll be any questions now that we know the outcome, but open it up. Are there any? No? Okay. Theme 3, which is Aberdeen Street Market opening, Phase 2 update. Any questions? No, it is fabulous. That's all I'm going to say. Theme 3, Blackpool Central update. Any questions there? No. Any general questions and comments? Oh, okay. So, Councillor Diane Mitchell. There's too many Smiths and Mitchells here. I'm really sorry. Diane Mitchell, and then Councillor Sloman after that.
Thank you, Mayor. I know I keep asking about regeneration plans for Waterloo. However, at the last meeting, I was told that there were no update yet on the scheme and how the 30 million will be used. Is there any update on the plans with Homes England yet that can be provided? And am I likely to get the opportunity to have some input for the much needed investment in one of Blackpool's key streets? Thank you.
Councillor Sloman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have spoken in this chamber before regarding transport and accessibility to the hospital. It's been really lovely to see that we're reimagining our bus routes, but yet again, there are 6 wards to the north of this town that do not have access to a direct bus route to the hospital. It concerns me, obviously, I'm a member of staff, I work at the hospital, I can make my own arrangements to get there. However, there are other people that can't do that. There are patients that have to attend the hospital on a regular basis. There are people that wish to visit the hospital. We've got a largely elderly, and I include myself in that population to the north of the town. Are we going to see some levelling up eventually and see some sort of transport directly into the hospital for the people that live at the north end of town? Great that we've capped bus fares at £2. That's absolutely fantastic. Never would argue with that. However, if you have to make multiple changes, you've got to pay £2 a ticket, or you've got to get a day pass, which is financially putting you at detriment to people who can just get the direct bus route. And I see you're nodding, Councillor Farrell, because yours is one of the wards that's affected. So in terms of levelling up, please can we level up our bus service to our hospital for our staff, for our patients, for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sloman. Any further questions or comments on the portfolio? Councillor Baker.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like, on the subject of bus services, like to know why we haven't actually got a bus service across Martin Moss. It must be the only area of Blackpool that doesn't have a bus service at all. So when you're levelling up, can you please look at providing a bus service just along Midland Road? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, over to you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the questions ahead. Regarding Waterloo update, we're still waiting for announcement on successful bid of the money we want to do. I think as soon as that arrives, then we can go out to consultation. We can then everybody be engaged in what we would like to achieve. And it's important for the whole of the town that we level up the whole of the town, not the town centre. But we're still waiting for announcements from government on there. So once we know any more, then we can update you on there. But I don't have any further updates at this moment in time. Okay, so but as soon as we know, we'll let you know. Okay, regarding transport, I do know we've got some funding from BSIP Plus, 500 and something thousand over the next 2 years. That's just over £1 million on funding. There's a plan to increase some of the bus routes and add bus routes on towards the hospital. I can't recall which routes they are, but what I'll try and do is I'll get BTS to update and inform every member of the chamber here on what routes we are increasing, adding to the planned sort of route we've got at the moment. So there is a few more routes being added to the network, but I can't tell exactly what they are. I can't recall which bus goes where. You know, unfortunately, I do drive around a lot, so I'm not familiar which number 4, number 5 or 14 where they go. So I do apologise on that for that. And regarding Martha Moss, I don't know about the bus routes to Martha Moss and it goes directly to the hospital, but what I do is part of the question answered by Mr. Sloman over there, we'll get that details to you, what all the bus routes are across the town, so every member can be aware of that and any changes that have been made. But I'll feed that back into BTS on your concerns regarding that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now on to the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Councillor Jane Hugo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to present my report, but before I do, I'd like to draw your attention and members' attention to a few areas in my portfolio not highlighted in this report. First being life events, and I'm really pleased to report that the Council's Bereavement Services Manager has identified benches at Carlton Crematorium, Nibbles Cafe and Leighton Cemetery to attach the Good Grief plaques we discussed at last full council. If members would like to support this project and identify benches in their wards where additional plaques could be placed, please do so. The more we can do to help people with bereavement, the better. And a great way to do this is by engaging with the plaques and the Sit With Hope campaign. Secondly, Parks and Green Environment. It was an absolute pleasure to attend the final day of awards at the North West in Bloom ceremony with Envico. Blackpool brought home an amazing total of 16 awards for our town. It's fantastic to see the efforts of our residents, community groups, businesses and organisations being recognised for all their hard work, and I would like to thank them all for helping make Blackpool a more beautiful and colourful place. Oops. My report today focuses on our efforts to achieve net zero by 2030 in 2 important areas: renewable energy and electric vehicle charging. There are many challenges in making these changes, but it is imperative that we face these challenges and act now. So I'm extremely pleased that the Council is seizing opportunities to develop various renewable energy solutions and introduce an infrastructure for electrical vehicle charging. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hugo. And can I just say thank you to the people from the Crematorium Life Events for nominating one of my charities, Council in the Community. They have received £14,000 to help with bereavement services across Blackpool. So thank you for nominating them. I'm sure they will spend it very wisely. So moving on, theme 1, renewable energy. Any questions or comments? Sorry, Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. It was questions really about the proposed solar panel on the airport. Great scheme, fully supported. I'm quite interested in who's actually paying for it, and where the money's coming from, and whether the electricity that's been generated gets fed back into the national grid. And if that's the case, what's the benefit to the council and Blackpool residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Any other questions on theme 1? No? Would you like to take that now, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Warren. I can appreciate your concerns in that area. So the idea is for a huge solar farm. So any investment that's put into that, it's still very much at the planning stages, but if and when it does go ahead, any investment put in will reap the benefits back. So it certainly won't be going into the national grid to be lost to any benefit. You know, if we go down that route, which I sincerely hope we do, it will pay for itself, and the profits, we will reap them all amongst ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hugo. And any questions on theme 2, which is the update on electric vehicle charging? No. In that case, any general questions or comments on the portfolio? Oh, quite a few. Councillor Mrs Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of things. One's just a comment, really. Oh, the second is a question. Thank you for highlighting the the Britain in Bloom, Blackpool's success. Part of that was Jubilee Gardens at Ginn, who do a fantastic job. Spoiled and marred, though, by the fact that the lights on the Blue Light Memorial were smashed mindlessly, and within a week of the illuminations that were installed there, one of the lit trees was broken. And I'd like to publicly condemn that sort of action in our town. We try so hard, all of us, to make our town look nice. The staff work so hard, the illuminations team work hard, and for this mindless vandalism to go on, why is all I can ask. Why? There can be no reason, really. My second point, on reviewing the Council Climate Action Scorecard, it's reported that Blackpool only achieves a score of 21% in their ratings to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, which puts us in the bottom 15 of single-tier councils. Other single-tier councils within that scorecard are achieving 50 to 60%. And I wondered, Councillor Hugo, what's your view on that, please? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Did we have some further questions over here? Councillor Sloman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hugo, Life Events. Thank you so much for continuing to back and champion the Good Grief Trust. As you'll probably all know, I'm very heavily involved, and I had the opportunity to go down to Parliament to address an APPG group about grief and bereavement, and it was a fantastic experience. What I'm desperately asking, pleading, begging all of you, if you can, please, prior to me going down on the 6th of December, pledge a plaque. I want desperately to say that Blackpool is going to beat Liverpool at some point. If we can beat their 100 plaques, it will be fantastic for us to be able to go down and to do that. And that's a big fat thank you from me to everybody. The other thing for me that I'd like to raise, Councillor Hugo, it's been acknowledged that across Lancashire there has been a 20% spike in referrals to the coroners. I think largely that's probably due to the new systems that we have within the hospitals of medical examiners now scrutinising medical notes and possibly things that would have been missed under previous systems are now being referred to the coroners. And again, I have to congratulate our fantastic coronial staff and our registrars who, like yourself, Leader, continue to be at work all day, every day, and providing a fantastic service to the people in this town. I don't know if everybody's aware, Operation Bermuda's been ongoing with the police investigating the horrendous things that allegedly happened in the stroke ward at Blackpool Victoria Hospital. And Operation Bermuda is now approaching its final stages, and we're waiting to hear whether or not the police and the CPS are going to be bringing prosecutions. But notwithstanding, there are going to be a huge amount of back-to-back inquests that are going to be held in the town, and it's obviously going to generate significant media attention. Sorry, I thought you struck me. Significant media attention and significant attendance in town by people who are going to come far and wide. What does concern me is that this is probably likely to happen in autumn next year, so we have got time to plan and prepare for that. Bearing in mind the limited capacity within the town hall, Are there any plans at hand or any thoughts about utilising some of the, maybe I mention it again, underutilised Bickerstaff House, where they have got all the IT that they need, where it will be easy for people to access the building, and if we can do something temporary away from here to allow families to attend and the professionals that need to attend. And are there any thoughts about increasing the capacity of staffing? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sloman. I can't talk on behalf of any other councillors, but I can tell you that Park Ward have ordered 15 of your plaques. Any further questions from Councillor Hugo? Councillor Danny Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. It's about electric vehicles. I know that the uptake on electric vehicles at the moment is very slow in Blackpool, which is probably just as well, which is to our advantage, because apparently there's only about 22 charges for every 100,000 people in Blackpool. I thought it was a misprint when I first read it. I thought it meant 220 charges per 100,000, but it's only 22. What is the policy regarding getting these up and running as quickly as possible? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Over to you, Councillor Hugo.
Okay, so hopefully I can remember everything. So, Councillor Michelle Scott, yeah, absolutely the vandalism on the Blue Light Memorial, and wherever it is, vandalism, it's absolutely abhorrent, and share your upset really around that. But also pleased about the award. It was the Northwest in Bloom event that we went to. So yeah, thank you for your thanks with that. The second point was, yeah, the scorecard. So yes, we did get a disappointing result on that. I think it's quite complex the way that the scorecard is analysed, and there are lots of different categories that we're assessed on. And unfortunately, a lot of it comes down to funding, and when you're competing with boroughs such as Westminster, they're going to perform much better than we are. However, on Monday next week, the leader, Councillor Farrell, and myself are going down to London for the UK 100 parliamentary event, where we'll be mixing with people who did the UK 100 training, and that will be the whole topic of the evening. There is about how we can improve these scores and get Blackpool back. This was the second tranche. On the first tranche we did really, really well. I think we got one of the best scores, certainly for community engagement, with the work that my predecessor, Councillor Hobson, led on. So yeah, we need to improve that, but it's managing it within the finances that are available to us. Councillor Sloman, yep, absolutely pledging the plaque. I think we're both singing from the same hymn sheet with this one, and great news for Park Ward 15. That's put a bit of competition out there. Let's see if any ward can beat that. And then the spike in the coroners. I've met with the coroner recently, and was fully briefed about the investigation that's going on with the stroke ward and the impact that might have, and also the IT and sort of facilities that they're using here might not be best for all circumstances. So it's definitely fully on the radar. They are looking into other alternatives and preparing for the future and any sort of increase in demand. Whether that includes an increase in staffing, I don't know. But certainly the rest of it is all being fully covered. And Councillor Danny Scott with the 22 EV chargers. I think my report covers that quite in some detail, really. That's the number that we've got now, and we are applying for funding to increase that in public areas rather than direct to individual households, because of the problems with terraced housing. We don't want wires trailing across the pavements, etc. So we will be increasing that funding provided in public areas like church car parks, council car parks, within a 5-minute walk of people's residence. That's the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hugo. And now on to the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, who is not with us tonight. So I believe Councillor Williams, you'll be taking his place.
Thank you. Yes, in Councillor Hobson's absence, I will do my absolute best to answer questions, but as you know, it may be that we get a written response to you. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Okay, so on to theme 1, the Regional Fostering Hub. Councillor Mrs Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate, Leader, you may not be able to answer my question, but I think we all know how much we wish to recruit as many foster families as we can in Blackpool for Blackpool children. And my concern is that by moving to a hub arrangement, if calls in are triaged in any way, they may be diverted to the local authority where people live, which might remove the element of choice from people who may not live in Blackpool but who may want to foster for Blackpool Council and foster Blackpool children. So I wonder whether you'd be able to answer, or someone would be able to answer, whether that will be possible, whether people will be given a free choice or whether they will automatically be directed to the local authority where they reside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any further questions on theme 1? No, in that case, we'll just go into theme 2, which is Children's Social Care Workforce. Any questions on that? Councillor Warren, sorry, still don't know your name, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate you might not be able to answer this question, but it's really good to see that we've got a low agency rate in terms of employment. I'm intrigued, I think, by the notion that we've adopted an approach that looks at recruitment and retention. And I don't know how long that approach has been in place, but it would be really helpful, I think, to find out how successful it's been in terms of the stability of the social care workforce. And I appreciate you might not be able to answer that here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Any further questions on theme 2? No, in that case, over to you, Councillor Williams.
Yes, what I can do, say, Councillor Scott, is I will pass that on, those concerns, and get a response. But I am sure, am I on? Yes. I am sure that, Vicky, DCS, knowing the issues that we face, will have, that will be on her mind in terms of how this is worked through. We need to ensure that as many foster carers who want to care for our children are enabled to do so. Councillor Warren, a long time. This has been, in the making really since 2018. Starting with looking at how to recruit with golden handshakes, looking at salaries. But ultimately, I think what has been successful is enabling staff to feel that they are making a difference. Through the Blackpool Families Rock, Head, Hands and Heart, Restorative Practice. Not all, but a lot of, we've had, agency staff who have come as agency staff to Blackpool and then, become permanent members of staff because they feel that they are making a difference. So that the way that we work with families enables them to, if you're becoming a social worker, you do so because of a genuine desire to improve the lives of our children and families. And that restorative practice, Blackpool Families Rock, that co-production of those values, and I think that has been the absolute key to that. Thank you.
Okay, so any general questions or comments of that portfolio? Councillor Carl Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm aware, excuse me, I'm aware of the hard work being done by officers to reduce the number of our vulnerable young chilled people in residential care. One to help reduce costs and another to support young people to stay within their family. This has had some success as we've seen numbers drop over the last year. However, we are seeing yet another overspend of £6 million on top of an increased budget. I've read the explanation that the reduction in numbers has been overshadowed by higher residential costs. However, it is hard to believe that it would have caused a £6 million overspend. Can we sustain these astronomical costs? What is the problem? We keep being told that we need more funding. However, what are we doing to stop the large amounts of money these residential home providers are asking? Are we doing things such as working with our neighbouring authorities to try to regulate these costs that these providers are coming up with? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments? Councillor, I blanked your name there. Sorry, Flanagan. Sorry, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. Last Friday, I had the great pleasure and honour to attend the U-Rock Awards in the Winter Garden alongside some of my Labour colleagues. This event is an opportunity to celebrate and mark the fantastic achievements of our looked after children, care leavers and young people. It was an inspirational evening, and can I please take this opportunity to congratulate all our young people who gained awards and all those that went above and beyond to support them in overcoming challenges and the barriers they faced. Having had the opportunity to speak to many of those who attended, I feel inspired and enthused about the future of our town, and I look forward to the positive contributions I'm sure they'll continue to make.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Williams.
Before, what are we doing locally? We've brought in local planning restrictions to ensure the spacing out of those accommodations to within. I think it was quite a novel way of doing that, and that has slowed down because the issue that we have in this port, is that availability of cheap accommodation. Because, have no doubt about this. This is residential children's care is I've said it in this chamber before. It's a national scandal. It's a monopoly, 300 million profit, and it needs the whole system needs. And government knows this. Government knows. There's been report after report, and I'm not sure why you're surprised that in terms of the cost of children's social care, every local authority that's issued a Section 114 notice, every local authority that has responsibility for children's social care that is going out there and saying, we are struggling, we are in imminent danger of issuing a Section 114 notice. It is children's social care, adult social care, either the homelessness, the issue of temporary accommodation, or school travel. This isn't, something that has sneaked up on anybody. This has, been very well aware to government, and it's government's choice to prioritise now the most vulnerable in our society and properly fund social care. We will continue to do what we can, in terms of ensuring that we have a good, committed workforce, and that we ensure that all of our children, regardless of the cost, and that is the commitment that we have made, that ensures that they have their best outcomes. And that includes the work that has been done to reduce the number in residential placements. This isn't just about costs, it's about those children having the opportunity to live in a home. We want all of our children to have that. But again, in terms of the national picture, that is out of our hands. And that is down to government, who need to, instead of prioritising tax cuts, to prioritise the most vulnerable. You think you're sorry. Thank you. Was there something? Oh, thank you. And sorry. Yeah. The children's, unfortunately, it coincided, but a number of us has ended a number of years. It's a emotional and wonderful evening, and we're very proud of all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. So moving on, Cabinet Member for Levelling Up People, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. It's that time of the year again that I remind members of the White Ribbon Campaign, which aims to prevent violence towards women and girls by addressing its root causes and aims to change long-established harmful attitudes, systems and behaviours, engaging more men and boys to be part of the solution. In previous years, I've always let members know about all the activities that take place across Blackpool during the 16 days of action. But there is some information in my report, and there's lots more info available on the council website. So this year, I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you of my own personal experience of recently being sexually harassed in the street. Might need a bit of a deep breath here. So one Saturday, a few weeks ago, I was stood at the bus stop on Bisburn Road, 10:30 in the morning, on my way to an event. A car was driving past me, and as it was passing, the male passenger shouted out at the window to me, "Get your tits out." At first, I felt shocked and asked myself, did that really just happen? And then I was consumed by an absolute rage. I was just so furious that a man thinks it's okay to shout, "Get your tits out" to me in the middle of the street. What actually goes through a man's head to think that this is acceptable? It took me several hours that day to calm down, and I certainly wasn't okay. I couldn't even report it as the car went past me that quick, that I don't even know what the colour of the car was. I bet he wouldn't have shouted to me if the nearby traffic lights had been on red and he would have had to stop. As a woman, I am so sick and tired of this happening to me. I was surprised at my own emotions. I'm getting a bit emotional now, actually. I was surprised at my own emotions that day, as I've been experiencing this behaviour since I was a young teenager. That's 40 years that I've had to put up with being catcalled, men showing me their penises that I didn't want to see, my body being touched when I hadn't consented. The list just goes on. And at what point will this end? I'm calling my most recent experience of sexual harassment out in the full council tonight to highlight that women and young girls are experiencing this kind of behaviour every single day, and it needs to stop. This is why, as you will see from my report, that it continues to be a priority of this council. There is a huge amount of work which continues, including our It Stops Here campaign, our home safety checks and Green Dot training for our communities, to ensure that there is a zero tolerance attitude in Blackpool for any abuse towards women and girls. The White Ribbon campaign aims to educate and raise awareness and engage more men to be part of the solution, and supporters of the campaign are asked, as Mayor said earlier, to pledge never to commit, condone or remain silent. And that's what I'm asking all of the members tonight. Please call any abuse out, and I will add, if it's safe to do so, and report it when it happens. Don't accept it as banter or make excuses because somebody's had a few too many drinks or don't know any better. Just call it out. Let them know their behaviour is not acceptable and it is a criminal offence. You can also help in raising awareness, and the first step can be joining myself and others on Friday, December the 8th, next week, isn't it, for the Reclaim the Night March. We're meeting at the Upside Down Cafe at 6 o'clock, so that's just by Cedar Square. To finish before I run out of time, or when the Mayor tells me off, I also want to take this opportunity to thank all of our partners across Blackpool who are helping us to raise awareness of the awful acts of abuse happening every day to women and girls. And by working together, we will be a step closer to ending abuse and harassment across our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Councillor Farrell. I know it was difficult for you. And can I just say, as the mother of a 15-year-old girl who gets catcalled while she is in her school uniform, it's certainly something we really need to stamp out in this town. It's completely unacceptable. So over to theme 1, Blackpool Together, welcoming warm spaces. Any questions or comments on this theme? No. In that case, stuck. Theme 2, street safety and domestic abuse. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say on that matter? Shock them into silence.
Can I just add, Mayor, if possible? I've just had some recent figures today, and this is for this year up to October, and the number of domestic abuse crimes is reduced in the town by -6, so it's down 6.2%, and the number of domestic incidents is also down by 7%. So, there is a lot of work going on in the town, and it's, we're going in the right direction. We need to stop everything that's going on, and But there's a lot of work. I mean, we're working with some of our most complex families, and that's where a lot of domestic abuse incidents happen. But because of alcohol and drugs, we're working with those part of the Changing Futures programme and within Children's Services as well. But there's some good news with the figures figures reducing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Warren, did you want to say something there?
I did, thank you, Mayor. It was about the hashtag It Stops Here campaign. Obviously, it's having some kind of impact. At some stage, it would be interesting to hear how you're measuring what that impact is, particularly as it's a kind of result of a co-production with the young people and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And with that, can we just, if there's no questions on the themes, are there any general questions and comments for Councillor Farrell? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just before I start a general question, I just wanted to thank you for what you said and how brave you were to say it. I'm sure the whole chamber, I know it does, echoes your anger for that situation. But thank you for what you did. And yeah, thank you. Sorry? Yeah, we do. It's not acceptable. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of a general question, Mayor, it was around the temporary housing conundrum that seems to be the emerging risk. It would be really good to know in terms of what have been the general costs over the last... I don't expect you to know this answer now, by the way. I should have said that first. So this is more one for a written response, if that's okay, Councillor Farrell. But what have been the general costs over the last 4 or 5 years? And what does it currently look like against budget? That would be really useful to know. And likewise, what do you think 24, 25 looks like in budget and in that area? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any further general questions before I hand over? Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Warner, it stops here. That's just started early at the beginning of the year. Part of what we do with our domestic abuse strategy is an action plan. We are going to evaluate that at the end of the year because we do need to provide a report to the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, and we'll get something. We'll have a look at that. Yeah, I'm never going to answer that question, am I, Councillor Galley? But what I can say today, the numbers in temporary accommodation have come down. So at the moment we're 115, 48 are families, and there are 18 families in B&Bs, which is some of our lowest figures at the moment. We are expecting that to rise over the winter period. But, you know, the average stay in Blackpool in temporary accommodation is about 35 days, which isn't lower than the national average. So, I mean, some local authorities, it's weeks, it's months. We do our very best to move our families on as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies, Councillor Farrell. This is isn't a follow-up to anything you've said, more that I forgot to say it. Aligned next to those numbers, there's another number in the room that we need to address at some point. It'd be really good to know if we actually know how many empty properties there are in Blackpool. Well, I talked about 289 earlier, just on the prom from Stargate to Bispham. It'd be really interesting to know what that number looks like, if the service has it or not, if that could also be brought back to our attention.
Okay, moving on. Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Street Scene and Neighbourhoods, Councillor Paula Burdess.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to present the report as it's written and to take questions, but just to add that the consultation for the Public Space Protection Order produced the outcome that will be forwarded to the courts to be written into the Public Space Protection Order, but there will be some delay as it can't be heard at court at the moment because of the closure. Yeah, just to take questions on the two themes as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So theme 1, the Public Space Protection Order for parks, green spaces and cemeteries. No. In that case, moving on. Highways. General Highways. Councillor Warren.
Thank you. Congratulations, I think, in terms of the Highways Department, reducing the number of claims of people tripping on pavements and so on, as well as some money being saved. I guess we ought to think about the injuries that have been avoided and so on. I just wondered, in this era where we're, as drivers, being asked to avoid puddles, whether we have comparable information about potholes and claims against the council for people who have damage to their cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Any further questions about highways? No, in that case, we'll just take some general questions and comments on the portfolio before I hand back over to the councillor. No, you've got off very lightly there. Can I just say myself, councillor, that I'm delighted to see that we are doing a targeted highway review around our 33 primary schools. I don't know about other councillors in here, but most of my complaints come around bad parking at school times. So I am very delighted about that. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Warren, for your thanks. I don't have the numbers on the potholes, the claims against the potholes, but all that I can tell you is that we do have a rigorous management system, so we will be able to get you some kind of report on that, and I will get a written response for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on to the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, who is not with us. And Councillor Farrell, I believe you're taking this report, are you?
I forgot I was doing this. Yeah, happy to present the report. I will, obviously, as the leader said before, I will try and answer some of the questions, but it's been a while since I had that responsibility, but I'll do my very best.
Thank you, Councillor. So we have theme 1, which is the Active into Autumn event. Any questions, comments? No? Theme 2, which is equipment recycling. Anything on that? Councillor Mrs. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Long overdue this. So for so long, people were given brand new equipment from the hospital, crutches, walkers, everything, commodes, whatever. And when they tried to give it back, nobody would take it. And this stuff was going into landfill. So I'm really, really pleased to see we finally, there were all sorts of excuses made as to why it couldn't be recycled, which clearly were not the case. So I'm really glad to see that this is now going to take place, because we don't want all that stuff going into landfill. We want people who need it being given it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on equipment recycling? No, in that case we'll move on to theme 3, which is the Adult Carers Strategy Update. No? General questions or comments? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just really a question, and I'm sure that Joe wouldn't have the answer at them, certainly, but with regards to adult social care and children's, every regard for the staff who work in those services, because the work they do is second to none. With regards more to adult services, Councillor Williams had outlined that agency staff was reducing massively, hence that's always a saving. But with regards to the 3 million plus overspend, are there any emerging themes as to why the cost is going up? And things never fall back. Savings get more and more difficult as time goes on. But I just wondered whether there was any emerging themes. I'm particularly talking about adult social care that is accounting for this overspend, and whether there is any concerns going forward which we really need to be aware of, because that's going to become an issue, as I say, going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Benson, did you have a question?
No, I didn't. It was just Councillor Taylor was getting upset because he thought you'd forgotten me.
Would I forget you? You sure? Okay. Any further questions? Are you sure, Councillor Benson? Okay, that's great. In that case, over to you, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Scott, I absolutely agree that it's long overdue. I mean, obviously, we've had a recycling scheme of the large items, haven't we? And as always, Blackpool is leading the way. And the ICB are nicking our really good ideas there. And I also, you know, I used to work for the British Heart Foundation, and Councillor Galley knows, and people would bring in their equipment expecting us to take it, and we couldn't take it, and the amount of waste is just unbelievable. So it is great news, so I absolutely agree with you. Councillor Cooper, I obviously don't really know the emerging themes for the spend. I can imagine it's probably because of the really complex needs of the people needing our care and support, especially after COVID and entering, you know, needing that support. But I will get you a full response from Councillor Brooks. But yeah, we've got a lot of vulnerable residents in our town that need our help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. So now we have the Cabinet Member for Young People and Aspiration. Better be a good report. Councillor Kath Benson.
Thank you, members. Very happy to present my report. Before I start, though, I just want to give a little bit of an overview about South Shore Academy. I'm sure members are very concerned, as I am, and it has dominated a majority of meetings that I've been to this week. So I just wanted to put a little bit more context on the situation there. So the recent Ofsted report has rated the school inadequate. South Shore, get my teeth in, is an academy, and it is run by Bright Futures Academy Education Trust. If they were a maintained school, they would have been forced to become an academy, but as they are already an academy trust with a previous inadequate judgment, they will be now in scope for rebrokering. This may prove slightly difficult as the school has a PFI contract on the school buildings, and not many trusts may be willing to take that on. Also, not many trusts will be confident enough that they can turn around the school without a major injection of funding from the DFE. Obviously, this is in the hands of the DFE, and I'm sure they are exploring all options, which include rebrokering and further support. So what are they doing? So this morning, I was at the Blackpool School Improvement Board, and we had a presentation from the CEO of Bright Futures. They were quite honest about the challenges ahead and admitted they were letting their pupils down and had failed some of them. Okay, so from a school's perspective, they're setting up a very robust action plan, thinking about governance and scrutiny, setting up their own Getting to Good board with a new governing body and new independent chair. So I think we're quite a long way away from improvements in that school, but you know, we think about those pupils constantly. As an aside, though, I do want to speak positively about the school, and I spoke about this last night at Corporate Parenting. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending an education event with education leaders and young people from our schools, and it was very much a pupil and young people event, and it focused on the future of the education system. And I was very lucky to be sat with some pupils from South Shore Academy. They were articulate, extremely aspirational about their futures. They were very proud of their school and how inclusive that school was, and they told me about some of the work that they were doing. They've even invited me to Christmas dinner. They're going to be going out and feeding some of the community that are not able to do. So, you know, some really great work that they're doing there. They spoke highly of their leaders and their school teachers, but they were also very honest and open about the challenges in their school. And you know, they were an absolute credit to their school and to Blackpool, and we've got to do better for those group of pupils. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Benson. So, theme 1, which is South Shore Academy's Ofsted Inspection Report. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say about that? No. Theme 2, which is the Wraparound Childcare Programme. Councillor Mrs Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Another positive here, supporting working parents to be able to work in the broadest sense, really, because their children are safely looked after at the start and the end of the day. But we need to also consider the holidays. Not all parents can take all of the holidays off, and it does put a big strain on parents and a worry. How are they going to manage their jobs and also ensure that their children are looked after? So that's something really just to offer as something we perhaps could look at as a further measure to support parents who need to work and want their children in a safe place when they're working. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any further? No? Well, in that case, we'll just go to general questions and comments first before I hand over to Councillor Benson. Any general questions or comments? No? Well, in that case, you can just answer that question, please, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Scott. Yeah, any of us that are working parents or got grandchildren know that the trials and the tribulations of finding childcare, yeah, very, very much welcome. As with all government schemes, we're kind of like, here's the money, you sort it. So we're very, very much in the early stages of developing this and just assessing capacity, especially with our schools and some of our providers. We do think there is enough capacity in the system for the wraparound care, but no, very much understand what you say there. I personally, I don't know if the schools will take that on. If the money was there and the finances, it would be very much probably from their private provider. I don't honestly see the schools, unless it's a provider that would go into the schools, but it's something we're very much looking at. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benson. And given that we've still got 4 agenda items on, and we're not quite sure how long these are going to take, can I ask if we could maybe have a quick 5-minute break? Thanks. It's just, my knees are too big. Oh! What do you mean? Ah, Chief Executive just squashed my bad knee. Never mind. Thank you for that. Okay, so moving on, we have agenda item 6, which is the Martin Moss Neighbourhood Development Plan. This is going to be moved by Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I am conscious of time, but I did just want to just make a few points about the obviously quite extensive report therein. The recommendation before Council is to formally make the Martin Moss Neighbourhood Plan. In doing so, the Neighbourhood Plan then becomes part of the statutory development plan for the designated neighbourhood area, and will also and will be used to inform the determination of planning applications. This whole process began in November 2017 when the local community voted in favour of producing their own neighbourhood plan for Martin Moss. Subsequently, when the Martin Moss neighbourhood area was formally designated, that was in March 2019, along with the Martin Moss Neighbourhood Forum. The neighbourhood plan covers the period of 2020 to 2030. The plan contains policy in relation to design, the local environment, housing, horticulture and equestrian uses, heritage and community. Community engagement has been at the centre of the plan, making process with involvement of the public and various stakeholders at many stages. I think there's been 2 consultations. There was a public consultation on the draft plan and then a further consultation on the submission version of the plan. The referendum took place on the 5th of October 2023. 32% of residents in the neighbourhood plan area turned out to vote and 90 voted yes to adopt the plan. The Martin Moss Neighbourhood Forum and the community need to be congratulated in successfully bringing forward Blackpool's first neighbourhood plan. And I also wanted to thank officers. We don't often thank planning officers. And if there is a way to make something involved, arduous, tortuous, difficult and stressful, planning regulation and rules will do so. But they have navigated it and worked with the community, and I think all of those involved with it should be really congratulated for their hard work in delivering something, as I say, particularly the Neighbourhood Forum and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, and I believe it's to be seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any other councillors like to speak on this? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to say a few things about this. I don't know whether you're all aware of how these neighbourhood plans and forums come into being, but it's a government initiative designed at trying to help local councils and planning departments how to develop an area that may be difficult to decide on what to do with it. And Martin Moss is one of those areas. So the initiative was to allow local people to form a forum, and this forum to help write a plan to help the planning departments come up with a solution that suited not just the planning department and the needs of the council to satisfy housing demands, but also to appease the neighbourhood where this development was going to be. So when it started off, you need a minimum of 21 people to form a forum. And I was on the original, the first meeting, and we had 12 people. We looked like struggling to actually get 21. And if you didn't get 21, then there was no forum, and it was passed back to the council. However, we did manage to get 21 in the end. In fact, we now, at the end, had 320 people registered with the forum. And we had to form a committee in order to manage the whole thing, bringing in outside supporting companies and borrowing, or not borrowing, but you know, getting money from various sources. And the committee have done a fantastic job over a little over 4.5 years, and they've done a fantastic job. I was going to say a lot of what Lynn has said, but they've already said it, so I won't go through all that again. But they've done a fantastic job, and it would be a shame if this council were not to endorse the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Baker and the leaders already said. This work started in 2015 when it first came to light, and it's a great example of the community working together to get the plan into the state that it did. And as Councillor Baker's already outlined, it's been hard work. It's not been easy, but it is an example of where the community have worked with the planning officers, and my thanks to them as well for the way that they've guided us through that process, and there's no reason at all why it can't be repeated elsewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Any further speakers? No. In that case, back to you, Councillor Williams, for a right to reply.
No, I just obviously I think we're just reiterating the same thoughts. I think it's been a challenge, hard work, and a real success, and we've achieved our first Blackpool's first neighbourhood plan, and a great success, although it's taken a while. But yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. In that case, we'll move to the vote. Those for the motion? Any against? Any abstentions? In that case, it's carried. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7, Lancashire devolution. Over to you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. So the recommendation before Council is to agree the proposed draft deal in principle and the consultation. The timetable is set out within the report, but essentially the matter would be before Council in March as to whether a formal submission of a final proposal to Government was made. That is following consultation, having findings, outcome being reviewed. And then once a formal offer was made by Government, we would be back here in the Chamber in May, June for final vote. Devolution hasn't been an easy journey. It was never going to be in Lancashire. But we have definitely made progress that many, including myself, never thought they would see. We've worked together and made compromises because devolution matters for all of Lancashire and has been a long time coming. Our residents and our businesses need it, and we are right to make a start now. We could wait until the end of time for the perfect solution, but our residents and businesses, they deserve progress now, and why we should take this opportunity and move forward. To keep Blackpool Transport Services, our buses and trams, was absolutely fundamental to Blackpool, and this part of the agreement is a unique feature of Lancashire's deal, and which has meant that we could actually get a deal done. Significant for us in Blackpool is the skills provision, allowing us to create and deliver locally designed support, and also allowing us to support new jobs in growing industries such as low carbon technologies, cybersecurity and green energy in Blackpool at our EZ alongside our Energy College. I see this as a start of a long-term devolution journey. We hope that as arrangements mature, Lancashire can build upon the devolution of things such as adult skills in this first deal and progress to higher levels, which is so important for Blackpool, for our residents, our communities and our businesses. There will be difficulties to overcome, and there are no guarantees. The only outcome with any certainty is if we do nothing. But I believe that we can make real progress, and indeed we must. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. And seconder? And do you reserve your right to reply? Thank you, Councillor. Okay, any other councillors to speak on this matter? Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. We've had a very thorough discussion, as have others, both I'm sure on your side and across Lancashire, about this very topic. We will be supporting the vote tonight. We are very keen, Mayor, that the public get a say on this. And it's referenced there why that matters. Our concerns, though, haven't gone away by supporting this proposal, and it's not to be taken as an overwhelming vote of support for this. We reserve the right to change our mind, and that's crucial in this conversation. Our concern is that this could be potentially a Frankenstein's monster. It's something that is created with good intentions, and eventually we lose control of it, and eventually it kills its creator. And that's very important for us that that doesn't happen, for all the reasons the leaders just alluded to in terms of what happens to Blackpool Transport in the future. We have concerns around this tier of bureaucracy that could be created, that there will be no democratic oversight of that. Who will pay, for example, for the new scrutiny members and the audit committee members? Will it be Blackpool taxpayers paying for those people? All of these questions we feel need to be addressed and answered in the consultation, which is why we are happy to support that tonight. It is very important that the public get their say. And in so doing, I noticed in the recommendations of what we're voting for, we will be delegating authority to the chief. And I feel it's incumbent, because of our support for what's come before us, the fact we have listened to the conversation that we had with the chief executive and the deputy chief executive, that we also have another opportunity to have a conversation with them, Mayor, based on the fact that we want to ensure that this consultation, bearing in mind it's happening during Christmas, it's happening during New Year, periods when the public generally don't engage in this subject, potentially a very dry subject, but nonetheless incredibly significant for some of the areas that I've alluded to, that we actually have a conversation again to make sure that this consultation is appropriate and successful, and does what it needs to do, which is answer some of the questions, because we know that this isn't going to be what's in front of us here, the final point. You're right, it is a journey. We have to make sure, though, that all of those points are addressed to protect us in the future, and as I say, does not become some kind of Frankenstein's monster that eventually destroys us, the creator.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any further speakers? Councillor Sloman.
Just an observation, really, rather than a question, and it was actually highlighted, and she must take the credit for this, Councillor Michelle Scott. When we looked through all the paperwork that we've been served, to generally read through, she noted that everything was emblazoned with the Lancashire this, Lancashire that, Lancashire the other. My earnest plea is do not let the unique, wonderful town that we all here serve disappear into Lancashire. We need to preserve our own identity, so please, 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 can you make sure that happens, Leader? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sloman. Any further speakers? No, in that case, back over to you, Councillor Williams. Right reply.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, as I've said, and yourself as Councillor Galley, this is we're embarking on a journey. We've often used throughout this process the bus analogy of getting on a bus and where it will go to. But if we remain standing at the bus stop, that's the only certainty. We ain't going to get it absolutely anywhere. So the Constitution has all to be worked through. In terms of the consultation, it is longer actually than the statutory minimum for that reason, because of over Christmas. And I can give some reassurance in relation to the cost. It will not cost the taxpayer. The initial setting up costs in the first couple of years will be met from within the funds that are made available for government, and thereafter the running costs will be part of any deal and any funds that come from central government for that deal. So, well, you can come back. So the other, so yes, and obviously conversations can have more conversations and observe all of those things. I mean, I think the other point in all of this that Councillor Sloman that you've raised, and you can be rest assured, we have been very clear and insistent, and standing very much like I have Councillor Taylor, who led this council to its unitary status, So I can really assure you that even if I was minded to, then there is absolutely no let-up whatsoever in that regard.
Absolutely.
We're all on the same page, you know, and it has been those red lines, both in terms of BTS, the unanimous voting. You know, it has been a rocky road, but we've managed to get to this point. And, you know, I think it's significant, the transport issue, the BTS issue. There was no other deal in the country that thus far has made that amount of compromise from government, because we were clear that there would be no deal. We would not agree to surrender our ownership of Blackpool Transport Services and our trams and buses. So I hope that gives you some confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. So can I just check that you are moving the motion recommendations 1 to 8 on Appendix 7A, is that correct? 1 to 8. Fabulous. In that case, over to the chamber. Those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No, in that case, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so now on to the scrutiny update report, and over to you, Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. Gosh, where do I go? This has been a very busy 6 months, Mayor, my word. Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't it seem a long time ago since we spoke in May when I was given this role of scrutiny, chair of scrutiny leadership? I've got to start with thank yous. I've got Scrutiny Corner over there that I can see. So we have Councillor Smith, Cartmel, Critchley and Councillor Flanagan, who've chaired those committees excellently. When you think 3 of the 4 of them were new councillors, a large proportion of the membership of the scrutiny committees were new. 2 of the committees were new. It was a huge piece of work to do all at once. And that also alludes to the fact that, you know, that it's been excellently supported by the vice chairs, the Councillor Mitchells, Councillor Michelle Scott. I knew I was going to forget somebody who's Councillor Ellison. That's why I've got a good excuse. She's not here. Yeah, I did say Mitchells. I pluralised it. So ably supported by Sharon and the Democratic Office team. They've been brilliant. This was a time of great flux and great change, and we had to capture that and capture it quickly, and all the scrutiny members have done just that. We've then quickly moved in, as you can see by the reports, into actually from forming into norming stage. And it was really important we had to do that. We've got some big pieces of work coming up for the town. Some of those issues we've heard about tonight. But what we tried to do very, very quickly, we tried to streamline the leadership board, so give the committees more ownership of the work that they're doing rather than just going to one central group. And there's still some work that we're unpicking at the moment in terms of performance and complaints, but we'll start to see the benefits of that fairly quickly. What we haven't done, though, is we haven't done any task and finishes yet. We've deliberately not done that. We have identified the power of recommendations, though. Those things in the committee where somebody says, that's a good idea, let's do it. And what we've tried to do is, let's write it down and make sure it happens. It's a really important thing. We're not always sure if that's happened or not in the past. What happens next, though, is for those committees, we will do just that. We will start to do the deep dives, the task and finish work. But what's missing, though, and what happens in the next 6 months, is we start to forge the relationships with some of the senior officers in terms of the corporate leadership team and also the portfolio holders in terms of how do we use this in terms of policy development. I think that's the bits that are missing yet, and conversations that the leader and myself will be having as well to support that. So marking everybody's homework, you've done brilliantly. If you thought it was busy for the first 6 months, wait till you see what's coming over the next 6 months. So just a huge thank you from me to everybody, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Councillor Williams, I believe you're seconded, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, happy to second, and you know, an awful lot of work has been done. I've always thought that the task and finish groups, they were the most enjoyable because you felt that you had the opportunity to have sufficient time. I think there is so much going on within the council that it's difficult, isn't it, to actually down to actually having the task and finish group. That gives us that opportunity to have that further intensive look. So, yeah, well done, everyone, thus far.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other councillors to speak on this? No? You've done such a great job, Councillor Galley, that's what it is. So no right to reply. We move to the vote. Those in favour? It is a vote. It is a vote. We've got to make sure that you're doing it correct. Yeah. Do we all agree that he's done a great job? Okay. Looking around, I can't see anybody who's not in favour or who's abstaining. So, see, we've all voted with each other. So, can we make it the last one we vote as well? Who knows? Who knows? So, thank you for that. Moving on, Audit Committee update report. Over to you, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, brand new Audit Committee, as I said 6 months ago. It doesn't seem like 5 minutes, to be honest with you. That was stood here saying something very similar. The new Audit Committee has worked really well together over the last 6 months. We've covered quite a lot of ground. The strategic risk registers covered technology, operations, property, programme management, and in internal audit reviews have considered driving at work, energy management, and more recently event management and what's been going on in the headland. A lot of good support from our officers. The meetings have been well attended by the officers as we've gone through the last 6 months. So thank you to them and the committee for that. That's all been underpinned by the training that the Audit Committee have undergone. Been regular training set up for the committee, which again has been well attended. The CIFRA position statements is included in the pack, and pretty much all areas show that we are compliant. So I'm really pleased to present the report to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'm happy to second and commend the work that's undertaken. I appreciate that you have been battling with approval of the accounts. In my regular meetings with the Director of Finance, I've now learned not to ask him about that particular aspect and wait till he tells me some good news. So, but as somebody who chaired planning for 4 years, and planning isn't everybody's cup of tea, I commend everybody for the work, because I do appreciate that the few times that I have been on Audit Committee, it's a very big commitment. There is an awful lot of papers and detail to go through, so it's not an easy job. So well done to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other councillors to speak? No. In that case, you don't need a right to reply, Councillor Roberts. So we vote on this one as well. Those in favour? Yay! We did it. Well done. Okay, so just for me to say, thank you for everyone attending tonight. I hope you have a fantastic festive period, however you choose to celebrate that. And also, it would be fantastic to see you all. You should have had an invitation to the Mayor's Parlour on the 16th of December from myself and my Mayoress, who will probably be getting ready for bed for school tomorrow, I would imagine. So it'd be great to see you all there. And I'll see you in the new year, if I don't see you before. Thank you.